Okay, I think we're ready to go. Again, thank you all for joining us. I guess now it's the afternoon. I'm Jillian Locke, Vice President for Institutional Advancement here at Austin College. Delighted to welcome you to the 2020 Todd A. Williams Executive in Residence Lecture. Before we start the program, I'd like to share a few logistical details about today's lecture. First, we're recording the program today. We will have a link available on the Austin College Homecoming website next week. So if you want to share the program with your peer group, that would be a great way to do it. We also invite your comments and your questions today. There is a Q&A chat box kind of at the bottom midsection of your screen. So please enter your questions there throughout the conversation today. I will make note of them. We'll conclude our time together by asking Melissa, our executive in residence, as many questions as we can in the time remaining after her conversation with President O'Day. So without further ado, I'm pleased to share a few introductory notes on today's lecture. The Executive in Residence was established by Austin College alumnus Todd Williams, a 1982 graduate of Austin College with a degree in economics. He is the executive director of the Commit Partnership. It's a consortium of schools, colleges, and universities dedicated to improving college and career readiness in Dallas County. Prior to dedicating his full-time efforts to improving education, Mr. Williams served as a partner and co-head of the global real estate private equity investment area at Goldman Sachs. The purpose of the Williams Executive in Residence Lecture is to provide role models and mentors to guide and inspire students towards successful careers in business, nonprofit organizations, or entrepreneurial ventures. Today's lecture topic is Moments That Matter, a career conversation. I want to thank Austin College President Stephen O'Day for serving as our host, and to extend a very warm welcome to Melissa Thompson, our 2020 Williams Executive in Residence. President O'Day became Austin College's 16th president in fall 2017. Since becoming president, he's led the college to make significant increases in freshman enrollments, has been active in improving and expanding campus facilities to serve the growing student body. President O'Day received his Juris Doctor degree from the Temple University School of Law in Philadelphia. He also completed the Management Development Program at the Harvard Graduate School of Education. Prior to beginning his career in higher education, he was a practicing attorney in Lancaster and Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And this year's Williams Executive in Residence is Melissa Thompson. She is Senior Vice President for Talent Acquisition at the Nielsen Company in Dallas. Today, Ms. Thompson will discuss the moments that have mattered during her 25-year career in global human resources and talent acquisition. I know we look forward to hearing her insights gained while holding leadership positions at McGraw-Hill Education, Citrix, Dell, and a CEO of Thompson Talent Innovations. Ms. Thompson is a 1984 graduate of Austin College and the Red McComb School of Business at the University of Texas. She currently serves on the board of the Association of Talent Acquisition Professionals. It's in moments like these that I feel just incredibly honored to share an alma mater with such tremendous alumni. So President O'Day, I'll pass the proverbial microphone to you to start the conversation. Thank you.
Jillian, thank you so much. And I am hopeful that we have Melissa on as well, or we're about to.
Hi.
We have Melissa, so the show may begin. That's
Success.
wonderful. So, Melissa, great to see you. Jillian, thank you for that introduction, and thanks to everyone for taking the time on a sunny 70-degree Friday afternoon that really should have been homecoming weekend with everybody converging on campus. But the world's a different place, isn't it? And so here we are. I've been looking forward to this. I think this is going to be wonderful. Melissa, thank you so much for serving as this year's Williams Executive in Residence. I'm going to try to do very little talking. I'm going to try to tee you up and let you run with it, because I think folks have heard from me plenty over the last 3 years, but I know they're looking forward to hearing from you, as am I. So I'm going to tee you up wherever I can. I may jump in with a comment here or there, but maybe not. We'll see how that goes.
Sounds like a plan.
Yes, yes. So Melissa, you graduated from Austin College with a bachelor's degree in business administration. You went to the Macomb School at University of Texas. You've earned master's degree, I guess, in human resources. You've worked at McGraw-Hill and Citrix and Dell, and now you're the senior vice president for talent acquisition at Nielsen. You probably wouldn't say this about yourself, so I'm going to say it. You're one of the nation's leading experts in the area of talent acquisition and executive recruiting. So I'm going to start off with this. How did your family, your education, your career choices contribute to your success?
Yeah, thank you. I will certainly start with my family. So my dad was originally from Guyana in South America. He was the youngest of 13, but the first to come to the United States. He went to Morgan State University, and that's where he met my mom. The two of them were absolute powerhouses. So dad ended up becoming a doctor, and mom got her MBA, and then ended up working for the state of Texas, professional accountant at Texas Employment Commission. So if you can't tell, it's a bit of a driver family. I'm the second of 4 children, so I will not say that I have middle child syndrome, but maybe a little bit. We are very competitive. So my older brother is 2 years older than me, and he went to Emory. My younger sister is 5 years younger than me, and she went to University of Texas at Austin. And my younger brother also went to Emory, and he is 7 years younger than me. So all 4 of us, my older brother is also a doctor. He followed in my father's footsteps. My sister, oddly enough, is also in the talent acquisition space. She's a leader in talent acquisition at Uber here in Dallas. And then my younger brother is a software development leader, and he is working in Houston. So very competitive, maybe possibly a little bit of sibling rivalry. But what's fun for me in particular is that my sister and I are very close. And because we're both in talent acquisition, we have this opportunity to play sort of tennis with each other around new ideas we're batting around, and no one else has to know about it because, you know, we're able to sort of be in our cone of silence. So that's sort of the family piece. And then education. I start with, actually I'll start with high school, because I went to Hockaday in Dallas, which is an all-girls private school. And oddly enough, the way I ended up at Austin College is my brother was 1 year ahead of me, and he was looking at Austin College, but decided on Emory. But I had been with him when he went to the Austin College booth, and the Austin College representative remembered me when I came to the booth and just made this great pitch and sell for Austin College is the place you want to go. You're going to be able to feel like an individual. And that is really the reason that I selected Austin College. I also wasn't in the mental space to go to a college where I was going to be one of thousands, right? I really wanted that opportunity to continue in smaller class size, the idea of a liberal arts education where I didn't have to really focus myself in a specific area, but rather got to test some things out to figure out where I wanted to be before I landed on business. Then coming out of Austin College, I actually worked for Saks Fifth Avenue in Dallas for a couple of years. And it was a very interesting experience in that I started on the sales floor, like literally selling ties in the men's furnishings group. And from there, I went into the kids department and was the assistant manager. Mom and dad weren't really feeling that. They weren't really getting behind this career path. And so I told the class that I spoke to in the last hour that they actually requested a registration for me to take the GMAT. This is how I decided to take the GMAT. I got a more than gentle hint from my parents. And so that's how I ended up deciding to go to B school. One of the first classes that I took was organizational behavior, and it was sort of an aha for me around, this is a way to use my skills in how I engage with people, but still allowing me to be analytical. And then my career journey. I actually started my career at Saks Fifth Avenue in Tysons Corner, Virginia. So the connect points were, as I came out of B school, it was, I know most of the people on this phone wouldn't have been even a glimmer in their parents' eye at this point, but it was just after the crash of 1987. Remember that October crash? I graduated the following year, and there just really weren't that many jobs out there. So a hint to people who may be in this same situation in the spring is that I used my network. I went back to the head of Saks Fifth Avenue, Dallas, and I said, I'm looking for a job and I'm kind of having a hard time figuring this out. What do you think? And he said, they're opening a new store in Tysons. I'm happy to recommend you. Boom, job. I didn't even interview. They called me and said, hey, we got a job for you. We're sending you the offer letter, ready, set, go. So work your network. And then I've had this career journey that has gone all over the US. I've lived not everywhere, but I've covered everything but the far Northeast and the far Northwest. I've been through all of the Midwest. I've lived in Florida and California. Dallas is still my favorite place. So I came back to Dallas in 2017. But I do want to talk a little bit about critical career moments where it was very clear to me that it was time to make a left or a right turn. One of the earlier ones was I got a call from an executive recruiter saying, you know, we have an opportunity at Dell in Austin, and this would have been in the early 90s. And I feel a little concerned saying, but what I said to that person was, what's a Dell? What is that? And I went out to Austin and interviewed. And in my interview process, I interviewed with an operations manager who said to me, you know, it's really important that the recruiter that comes into this role is able to really dedicate time to us. So, are you married? I was like, you're not supposed to ask that question. I did not say that to him, but I did to the person that ended up becoming my boss. I was like, Tony, do you know that you have senior leaders asking these kinds of questions? And he almost turned purple because he was like, did he really ask you that, or are you just joshing with me? I was like, yeah, I know things that are funny. That's not funny. He's like, so have you done any teaching training around getting hiring managers to understand what they can or can't ask? Because that might be one of your first projects. And that's a little bit how I got that opportunity, is like being very honest in my interview process and, you know, sort of revealing, you guys have a bit of a challenge here. Dell was an absolutely fantastic opportunity for me. I started in that recruiting role and did so well in that recruiting role that 18 months later, I had an opportunity to move to my next job. And then 18 months later, I got the opportunity to my next job. And the second half of my career at Dell was actually all in college recruiting. And I was just really fortunate to be in college recruiting at Dell at a time where we were hiring 200 MBAs and we were hiring almost 1,000 undergrads, because we were hiring in operations, in sales, in marketing. And I went from being a manager for the MBA part of the team to managing the whole team while I was there. So really, some of the things that I think about when I look back over my career is that it wasn't a ladder. It absolutely wasn't I moved to this role and then I moved to this more senior role. I made changes that were sometimes a slide to the side, sometimes even a slide down before I went back up. And you really have to, it's not that you can necessarily curate your career, but you can think about when these opportunities come to you, instead of saying, that isn't the title I want, or that doesn't take me to necessarily more money, that instead you think about, how does this expand my knowledge? How does this have an impact on what's on my CV? How can I say that I got to lead this big project? So the other moment that matters that I wanted to talk about is really the 7 years that I spent at Citrix. When I was initially hired at Citrix, I was responsible for just the Americas. So I had North and South America. I don't know what I did in my first 6 weeks, but it must have been something magical because suddenly I got EMEA. And I had never managed EMEA before. So I spent a lot of time on the ground in EMEA, talking to business leaders, really understanding their challenges, and then figuring out how I could design a team that would support their business needs. So quiet as it's kept, talent acquisition, recruiting is the engine that drives the business, because if the business can't recruit their resources in a timely manner, they're not going to make their numbers, right? And if they're working on growing into a new space, but they can't make the hires, they're not going to make that project happen. So I consider myself a very important part of the business. 3 years later at Citrix, I was able to take over the Asia Pac region. And I like to say my efforts at global dominance were successful. But the thing is, when you move into those bigger jobs, you have to then think about, and someone asked me in the class yesterday, how do you think about when you're managing a small team versus when you're managing a really large team? And part of my response was, you cannot lead in a way that says, follow me. You have to lead in a way that people understand your vision, that people can see why you're doing the things that you're doing, and that they can have input into the success. So that when you start to have these measures of success, you actually celebrate those successes. The other thing is, I design my org in such a way that the people that are on the ground doing the recruiting are not that many steps away from me. And I try to keep my hand in and actually do at least one job, recruit for one job every year.
Terrific. So, Melissa, you've worked for some of the world's biggest corporations. You founded your own company in the Thompson Talent Innovations. So I'm curious, large corporation, running your own business, do you have a preference?
Yeah. If you look at my LinkedIn profile, and you'll see that I only ran my own business for 6 months. So while I enjoyed the process of getting the company started up and finding the business, the constant need to have that pipeline of business ready so that when I finish this project, I'm ready to jump right to the next project, I found that was not my happy place. The other part was working by myself, really sort of just as a single individual. That was not fun. And fortunately for me, my second big project at Thompson Talent Innovations was with McGraw-Hill. I knew the CHRO. We were in an HR leadership consortium in Raleigh, North Carolina. And she reached out to me and said, we're trying to do a transformation, and I'd really like you to come and help me understand what my problems are. And 3 months into that gig, we were sitting together working on the budget. And she looked at me and said, did you put yourself in the budget? And that's how I got an offer from McGraw-Hill.
Gotcha. So I'm going to shift gears on you a little bit to Nielsen. So I'm looking right now at the participants. There's like almost 100 people listening to this right now. There are at least a few of us in that group that remember television primarily as 3 major networks. There was ABC, NBC, CBS. We were used to understanding that these sporting events were on tape delay, and you had certain shows through the week that you'd watch, and heaven forbid if you missed, the 8 o'clock start time. Yeah, exactly. But we are in a different world now. We're in the world of streaming channels and just the proliferation of handheld devices, and just all kinds of media access, which I'm sure creates this never-ending battle of trying to keep up with technology.
Mhm.
How do you balance the, technical expertise with the soft skills that you need to have when you're recruiting talent?
Yeah. So first I'll say that Nielsen has really been masterful in how they've made these successive changes to meet as the audience that we measure explodes and explodes and explodes. Then I'll actually answer your question, which is recruiters, when a new job opens, a recruiter actually hosts what we call a discovery session with a hiring manager. So if a technical job opens, they will go to that hiring manager and actually say, okay, I've read the job description and it looks like you need these technical skills. Really, for the job advertisement, we want to understand what are the top 3 or 4 skills that you need. Those are the must-haves. And then what are the nice-to-haves? And then secondarily, what are the soft skills that are important on your team? And oh, by the way, why would someone want to come work for you? We have to understand that why, because the recruiter is responsible for selling the candidate on why they should be in the process and why should they continue in the process. So things like core communication skills, dealing with ambiguity, being able to be part of a team. And I think I've told the secret question a couple of times, but I will tell it again. I almost always ask the question, tell me about a difficult problem that you've had to solve. What was the problem and how did you get the solution? And I'm looking for a lot of things. I'm looking to hear, is it actually a difficult problem? I'm looking to hear, did you do any research before you started solving the problem? Did you engage team members or peers inside or outside of the organization in your problem solving or your solution? When you describe your solution, do you have what my mom used to call eye strain? I did this, and then I did this, and then I did this, as opposed to I did this, and then the team worked together to do this, and as opposed to it's all about you, because usually if you're solving a big problem, there are a group of people involved in the solution. I'll also say that every company has a culture. Like there's an Austin College culture, right? And there are people that are a better fit in the culture than others. And so one of the things we try to understand is not culture fit, but culture add. So if our culture is one of innovation, who is going to be able to come in and add that innovation lens to a team or to a business unit?
I want to focus a little bit on Austin College and
Okay.
what Austin College did for you. So, I'm sitting here and frankly, I'm a little mesmerized. I just think you've had an incredible career path. And I know the people listening in now are thinking the same thing. And I want to go back to something Jillian said a few minutes ago in introducing. We are recording this, so there's a whole other set of people that are going to watch this. And obviously it's going to be an Austin College audience. So one of the things, Melissa, that I get a lot as president when I'm out on the road talking to people is the notion of the small liberal arts college experience. What's the value proposition? Is it worth it? We sometimes find ourselves the butt of jokes, right? What are you going to do with that major kind of thing? And those who have heard me talk in the past know I'm hypersensitive to that. I don't find the humor in that because the reality of it is it doesn't necessarily matter what you majored in. If you went to Austin College, you're ready, you're prepared, and you can go in any direction you want to go. And I'd be lying to you if we didn't pay close attention to that when we invited you to do this.
Right. So I would say there are a few things that I just still love about Austin College. When I was first selecting Austin College, I was a little hesitant to come to the small city of Sherman, Texas. But there's an upside to being in Sherman, Texas. You end up more engaged with the people on the campus because I guess there's more to do in Sherman today, but I don't think there's much more to do in Sherman today. And because of that, because of the size of the campus, like how many students, because of the, we're in this together kind of feel of the campus, I have literally lifelong friendships from people that were the class ahead of me, my class, the class behind me. And I was just talking to the strategy class, and I said, some of that is what helped me in my career moves. When I was in graduate school, there were 2 other Austin College people in my graduate school class. And so sometimes we would run into things and we'd just huddle together and go, okay, how are we going to figure this out? Because I don't have any idea what was just said in that macro econ class. So let's work together and figure this out. So that kind of partnership, but at the same time, this broader thing that you get from being a part of Austin College, where you have a culture of innovation, so you're used to thinking that way. You have this engagement with other people that helps you as a member of a team. You're willing to question and seek to understand. I think all of these things are things that we learned at AC. You're on mute.
You talk of culture, and I'd like to sort of follow up on that, maybe in a slightly different direction. So I think we're at a moment, certainly nationally, where a lot of businesses and institutions are really trying to be better in terms of racial and gender equity. And I know at Austin College, we're one of those institutions that's always seeking to be better as well. We're fortunate as an institution in that statistically, I think I'm proud of the progress that Austin College has made over the years. We have over half our student body are students who identify as students of color, and we're constantly seeking to make progress. But the statistics are one thing, but the second piece of that, and maybe the more important piece of it, is, are we truly creating a culture that is inclusive, diverse and inclusive? And so I'm wondering what your experience as a Black woman might tell us that are the most impactful strategies for inclusion and diversity.
So first I'll say, one of the reasons why I was excited to join Nielsen is the CEO also holds the title Chief Diversity Officer. And most CEOs don't do that. And he gets challenged on it regularly. Here's what he says. He says, as the Chief Diversity Officer, I have the most capability of making a difference around what happens with diversity in this organization. Secondarily, this year, when all the things popped off at the end of May, first, within 2 weeks, we held an all-employee town hall. And we had several different leaders that spoke, several African-American leaders, certainly. But when David, our CEO, spoke, what he said just resonated, which was, look, I'm a white guy. I don't have anything to say on this call. I'm just listening. I'm just learning. And that was really appreciated because he comes from that really honest place. Separately, look, I'm responsible for bringing talent in the organization, right? So I have to have some ownership for how we improve our representation. How does Austin College begin to think about how diversity and inclusion can be throughout the entire Austin College experience? I think having people like me come back and talk about where we came from and where we are now. But I also think we're not gonna, this is an elephant. We cannot eat it in one big bite. We've gotta think of what are the micro things that will get us to the macro change. So whether it is current students being willing to tell their stories to high school students that are coming on campus, whether it is being willing to think about where is your representation and where do you want it to go. So at Nielsen, we published our representation numbers, and our CEO has said, this is where we are today. We're going to measure and manage diversity in the same way we do our financial metrics. We're going to share them publicly, and we are going to look at how we hold our leadership accountable for making a difference. And for me, that's like, those are like magic words. So if all of the stakeholders are agreeing that we need to continuously improve and this is what improvement looks like, then suddenly you have not one person working on the change, but you have this whole group of people sort of helping to drive the change.
Melissa, what would you have done differently at Austin College? Or if you can't pinpoint something while you were here, maybe early in your career?
Mm-hmm. So I really enjoyed my time at Austin College. I wouldn't change a thing. I mean, good stuff, bad stuff, hard classes, easy classes, I wouldn't change a thing. But here's what I would say is, in my very early career, I was a little bit scared of making a mistake. I was a little bit scared of, what if I don't like what I'm doing? What if I end up in this career and it's not fun? And this is somewhere where my parents made it okay to just say, okay, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm moving on to the next thing. I told the class I spoke to earlier, I was in this job in Washington, D.C., and I actually ran into an ethical dilemma that made me hugely uncomfortable. And I was upset enough to cry, which is very unusual for me. Not just unusual that I was crying, but I was crying at work. And I called my mom, and mom, knowing me really well, was like, what in the world is going on? And I was talking her through this situation that I'd just gone through and how uncomfortable I felt at this company and that it really wasn't working for me. And she's like, move home, just move home. And I was like, but she's like, no, I mean, if you're not happy, if that's not working for you, move home, let's do a level set and figure out what's next. You don't have to stay there. And I was like, oh, revelation, you know? Yeah. You have to be okay with saying, I'm on this path, this isn't working for me, I need to make a right turn. I was certainly fortunate in that I had parents that truly supported me. I will tell you though, I moved home, I might be slightly anal retentive, slightly. And one day they came home from work and I had redone the whole pantry, like I had papered it and I'd organized everything. My dad opened the pantry and he was like, get a job. Get whatever your next job is, it is now time to find it. So a lot of that, it really helped me as I moved on in my career and started thinking about, am I in the right place? Am I getting the right support? Am I moving in the right direction? So that was fortunate for me that very early in my career, I understood that if it wasn't the right thing for me, it was okay to make the right turn.
I think that is such a wonderful thing for our students who are about to graduate to keep in mind. And along that same vein, I'm wondering, what advice do you have for that stressed out student who's getting nervous about how to interview and begin a career that most likely will take them in directions they've never even imagined? But I know the real immediate thing is they're stressed about it. So I wonder if you have any advice for them.
Yeah. Yes, of course I do. First of all, don't get discouraged on the journey. I've talked quite a bit in the classes that I've attended about what we call the recruiting funnel. And it's much like the marketing funnel, right? So I'm only trying to hire one person every time I open a job, but I might post a job and have 600 people apply for it. Well, how do I get to the 5 people that are actually going to do the final interviews? Well, there are all these screen out mechanisms. Pay attention to what is on your resume. There's literally no excuse not to use spell check. There's no excuse not to have like one font size and have it be pretty. A special secret, read your resume backwards. Read it from the bottom up, because you've been working on your resume all this time and you always read it top down. You will find something different if you read it bottoms up. Recruiters are looking for a reason to screen you out, right? Because think about what the unemployment rate is right now. Think about how many college students are looking for jobs right now. Give them a reason to screen you in. Whether it's asking a really good question when you're in an information session. Be prepared when you go to information sessions. Do a little bit of research on the company. Understand what the company does. Ask a question that no one else is asking. I've said this at least twice this week. If your parent happens to be a helicopter parent, that is not a benefit to you. Our CEO reached out to me last week because a parent reached out to him and wanted to know why his son didn't get the finance leadership program role. I'm like, well, that answers the question right there, doesn't it? If we want someone who thinks for themselves, who's able to deal with ambiguity, who is willing to advocate for themselves. I mean, this particular person had been an intern. Why did he not go to his last manager and say, hey, I didn't get the job. Do you have a time for a 15-minute conversation that I can figure out what I did wrong? Just saying, speak for yourself. And then I think I've said several times this week, your LinkedIn profile is your always on advertisement for you. So if you don't have a LinkedIn profile, get one. And if you have one, fill it out. Give it a little bit of meat. I know you might have only had internships or jobs in retail, or maybe you worked at the gas station, but all of these things are experiences that we can understand, that maybe you have customer service skills, or maybe you have this ability to work on a team. Let's say you haven't had internships or you haven't worked. What has your Austin College experience taught you? And how can you call out where you volunteered, or where you led in your sorority, or any of these things are things that we're going to be looking for that help you to stand out. GPA, important, but not the most important thing. It's like the first lever.
Melissa, I want to follow up on that. Through your observations, where do you see shortfalls in today's applicants? You started talking about that with, your resume and the same font and spell check and all that. Are there sort of patterns that you see, like, these newly minted graduates, they really should have X or Y kind of thing?
So I said this yesterday, but I'm going to say it again today, which is answer the question you were asked, not the question that you wanted to hear. Just saying. Secondly, when someone asks a question, almost always for college students at this level, they're going to be looking for what we call a STAR answer. A STAR answer is, what was the situation or task? What action did you take? And what was the result? You're not going to get asked yes/no questions. So you need to be able to think about, when someone asks you, of the courses that you took, what would you say was the best course and why? You need to be able to say, course X was the course I enjoyed the most, and the reasons why were, it was a small class and we were challenged and we got to do this special project. And you're going to need to be able to go ding to ding to ding to ding to ding. Guess what? Prep for your interviews. If you know you have an interview, don't go in cold. And by the way, if I ask you something that is at the bottom of your resume and you go, like somebody else built your resume and not you, so you don't even know what that is, that's not good. That's not good at all. So it's okay to use someone to polish up your resume, but make sure you know what's in it, because you never know what you're going to be asked.
Great advice. So I'm going to ask you an Austin College question. I happen to know, because I'm glancing at the chat, I happen to know Jillian's going to ask you more specifically about graduate school and thoughts you might have on that. But let me ask you an Austin College question.
Yeah.
As you look back on it, because I know you've given this thought, what was the most valuable experience or experiences you had while you were a student here?
So I'll point to a couple of things. One was the Jan term experience. Like being able to focus on one thing for that, short 25-day time frame. One of my Jan terms, I did, this sounds really controversial, and it even was now. We did a whole class that was called Abortion and Objective Outlook, and really looked at both sides of the question and debated our way through it. One, I did an immersive Spanish course where we had to speak Spanish the whole time, and we ended up doing a Spanish play. I mean, you don't get to do that if you go to UT. I'm just all I'm saying is. The other thing is, for me, the lifelong friendships. So when I look at my Facebook, the people that are on my Facebook scroll, I'd say 60% of them are people that are Austin College friends that either graduated the year before, graduated my year, graduated the year after. And that kind of tight partnership, engagement, willingness to, if I pick up the phone and say, hey, I've got this challenge and I don't know how to solve it, to say, let's talk this through, let's figure this out. That kind of partnership and friendship happens because 2,500 people on the campus, because Austin College really encourages you to build those kinds of friendships and engagements.
One more Austin College question.
Yeah.
We talk, in our mission statement that we prepare graduates for successful careers and meaningful lives.
Yeah.
And we say that and we really mean it. Mm-hmm. But I wonder, talk to us just for a minute or two about what do you do beyond work? Mm-hmm. And did Austin College have any impact on, that meaningful life component?
Yeah. So first I would say that probably Austin College was thinking about the concept of work-life balance well before that became a thing, because it wasn't just what are you doing in your academic career. It was really about what are the other things that you're doing that make you well-rounded outside of work. So first of all, I'll say, I often say there's no such thing as a recruiting emergency because no one's gonna die. And if somebody is dying, the last thing you want to do is call the head of talent acquisition. Dial 911, for goodness sakes. So I turn off my phone at around 6:30 every day, and it doesn't come back on until whatever the time of my first call is the next morning, 7 a.m. Now, sometimes because I have a global team, I'll have to do a night call, but let me be clear, off, completely off work. And I really model that so that my direct reports and my indirect reports can understand that when they're not working, they're not expected to answer questions. I'm a Scrabble nut. I play Scrabble every day. Since they moved Scrabble into an app, my sister and I have had an ongoing Scrabble game, I don't know, 6 years. I mean, certainly games end, but as soon as a game ends, we start another one. So Scrabble is absolutely one. In times before COVID, I loved to bowl. I've actually taken my whole talent acquisition team bowling with me, which has been funny and amazing. And by the way, one of the things that I think is really important as a leader is to be what I call stractical. So it's a combination of strategic and tactical. I want my recruiters to understand that if they're having a challenge, I will come down and sit next to them and help them figure out the challenge. I'm not in such a place that just because my title is SVP of Yakata Yakata, that I can't help solve a problem. And it's important to me that my team understands that. I'm also a big reader. For those of you that are Barnes & Noble Nook people, my Nook went down last Saturday and was down for 5 days. And I was like, what am I supposed to do now? Well, I mean, I read every single night. So I'll read a book a week, easy. So it just came back up this morning, but I have sent some sternly worded emails to my friends over at Barnes & Noble. I'm like, what are you people doing? This is technology. What do you mean you can't fix it in a day? So yeah, those are some of the things that I do outside of work.
Well, that's fantastic. I will share with everybody one takeaway from this talk is I really need to work on turning the phone off. And yet, that's a tough one. So
I have a separate phone. I have a personal phone and I have a work phone. So
yeah.
I actually turn the work phone off. And when I go on vacation, I'm going on vacation next week. My team knows, again, no such thing as an emergency. But if there is something where the CEO is asking a question that the only person in the entire world who can answer it is me, there is one person on the team that has the number to the bat phone, which is my personal phone.
Okay. Okay. That's good. I got to keep all this in mind. So Melissa, we wanted to allow some time for some Q&A, and I think I'm supposed to turn it back over to Jillian at this time. I could keep going with this conversation for a long, long time. Thank you so much.
For sure.
Yeah, yeah. So Jillian, back to you.
Great, thank you. Have an advancement first.
It's fun for me too, for sure.
Stractical. I'm going to get that tattoo.
You're like, I'm taking that one.
Like that. Okay, first question is from Kyla. Can you talk about your experience in graduate school and how highly would you recommend graduate school for a business major?
So because I went to business school, I sort of have a leaning towards, yes, go ahead and get your MBA. Here's the nuance that I would recommend. Go and work for a couple of years first and then get your MBA, because the value of the MBA is so much more when you have some work experience, so you can bring some of those live examples into the conversation. It really makes a huge difference. So I worked for almost 3 years before I went back to business school, and it really was a very nuanced conversation. So yes, and in the last class, someone asked me, you know, is it still a valuable thing to get an MBA? Look, every resume stands on its own feet. So if I see someone with an MBA and someone without an MBA, I'm going to be looking for more than does the person without an MBA have the types of experience that I'm looking for, right? It's really about a matching up. If you went and got your MBA, but this person has 10 years of experience and I'm looking for a project manager and they've already managed big global projects, your MBA might not win over that, right? So it's a balancing act for sure.
Well, I think that touches on another question that we have, which is when looking for management level applicants, how essential is a graduate degree? And is an applicant automatically removed if they don't have one?
No, they're not automatically removed. And actually in this more hyper-focused, how do we ensure we're getting more diversity into the pipeline, we ask the recruiters to really push on the hiring manager in that initial discovery conversation to say, you've said a graduate degree is required, but is it really required, or is it just a nice to have? Mm-hmm. And in some cases, hiring managers are like, oh, it's just kind of a preference of mine. So I know you've heard likely a lot about unconscious bias, and recruiters really have a responsibility to push on that with hiring managers to say, are you just having a bias for someone that has a master's degree because you have one? Or does the position really require it? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, one from Linda Thomas, 83. She was a Delta with you.
Yeah.
Hi, Linda. It's been too long. I haven't seen you in a long time. So let's see. She says, my daughter is an Austin College grad, 13 and 14, is in her 7th year teaching. She really wants to get out of the classroom, but has no idea how to proceed, especially in COVID. She's in San Antonio as of June and doesn't have a network there. Are there ideas for her to pursue?
Yeah, I don't know. If I hadn't worked at McGraw-Hill Education, I might not have a really great answer to this. But those educational companies are really looking for, teachers who might have some transferable skills around moving into a sales role or moving into a marketing role, because their experience in the classroom is really giving them a leg up if they're trying to design how to market to other teachers, or if they're trying to figure out how they sell to other teachers. So places like McGraw-Hill and Khan Academy and all of those are really, really good opportunities. One of the things that we have to think about is, what are the adjacencies, right? So if I have, well, so for me in HR, for a long time, I worked for technology company. And then when I was looking for a job outside of technology companies, they're like, well, you seem to be an HR technology person. I'm like, HR is HR. And here is how I can add value to your organization. So you really have to both think of what's adjacent and what might work for me, and how do you sell yourself.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, good luck to our friend in San Antonio.
Right.
Okay, another one. How would you suggest building a network while in undergrad?
So my network starts with a whole bunch of ruse, a whole bunch of ruse. The other thing is, when you're thinking about building your network, literally you should sit down and draw a diagram, right? So you're at the center. Who are the people you know from high school that you know are going to be on a trajectory that having them in your network is going to be useful? And by the way, when you pull people into your network, this is a two-way street. How can you help them as much as how they can help you, right?
Absolutely.
Then you have your college connections. And then you want to think about, did you volunteer someplace where the leader of that volunteer organization is a good person to bring in? I worked at St. Mark's Day Camp. The person that was in charge of day camp is in my network. So your network doesn't necessarily have to build as you become a professional. Certainly it will build more that way. But you can start with thinking about around you, who's in your stratosphere that you can help, that can also help you.
Great. Oh, we've got another one. Does your career now meet the career goal that you had when you were an undergraduate?
I didn't have a career goal when I was an undergraduate. I was like, just graduate. B, I can remember as clearly as if it was yesterday. When I graduated, I was over the age of 18, so I was drinking a glass of wine and I was walking down the street from my house. And I was thinking to myself, okay, now I've graduated, what am I going to do? And I got back to the house and my dad was like, how did it go? I was like, I don't have any answers. Do not necessarily pinpoint, this is what I'm going to do in my career the moment you get out of college. Because as you heard, my career has been a bit of a jungle gym. You give yourself the space to find where your path is, try some things, and be okay with saying, okay, my sister would be okay with me telling this story. She went to law school, and a year in, she was like, "Nuh-uh, this is not it, not it." And she jumped out, and now she's a peer of mine in the talent acquisition space. She works at Uber. So just be willing to, make those turns. But yes, you can have career goals now, but be okay with changing them over time.
Absolutely. Okay, I have a question,
Yeah.
if that's okay. I know mentors, some of whom have offered some tough love to me at times,
Yeah.
have been important in my career. Do you have mentors that have been particularly influential to you?
Absolutely. I have what I call a personal board of directors. And it is a curated list of people that are different age ranges, different experience levels. For example, there's a gentleman that I worked with at Bank of America who was in the C-suite. And he's one of those people that will tell me about myself, right? So if I call and say, I'm at Citrix and I'm thinking about leaving because I'm not sure where they're going with their strategy, and he's like, Okay, I'm going to ask you 3 questions. I want you to answer those, and then we'll talk again tomorrow. Okay. And then I have people that are in HR. I have people that are in diversity. I just try to keep a really broad network so that as I come into a part where I'm questioning myself or questioning my next step or questioning my direction, I also just have on my calendar places where I just have touch bases with these people that are on my personal board of directors, because sometimes we'll get into a conversation, they'll say something to me that'll spark something that causes me to think about a project a little bit differently.
Mm-hmm. And I would imagine that different people within your board are going to be particularly useful for different types of decision points.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And they're not all in HR at all. A lot of them are just straight in the business.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, related to that, how do you stay connected with your professional network? What is the separation between college friends and college network?
Okay, I know that some people use Facebook for work, but I do not use Facebook for work. My friends are on Facebook. My work life is on LinkedIn.
Good.
And the way that I stay engaged with my network is a number of different things, but one is I actually do blog posts on my LinkedIn, right? So I'll just yakata about something. But I also do webinars 3 or 4 times a year. And they're on a number of different topics, but it keeps me engaged with my network and connects other people with me that might not have been in my network, that helps me to grow my network. So earlier this year, I did a session on transforming talent acquisition. How do you think about the overall recruiting organization? And if you're in a company that is either fast growing or contracting, how do you respond to those changes? How do you meet the needs of the business? How do you begin to think differently about what it is you're doing? So yeah, I do all of those things. It's managing your personal brand.
Yes.
Right.
And you'll have a LinkedIn brand and a friend brand, I would imagine.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And I, by the way, I said to the last class that beer pong is really good, but maybe you don't need pictures of that. You might find a picture of me having a cocktail, but you're certainly, if there is beer pong in my life, you will never see it.
Will not be documented.
No.
Oh, okay. We've got one. Why don't we make this our last question, because I want to be respectful of time. This is great from Dalton. What are some tips for creating a LinkedIn profile and having it stand out?
Yeah. Okay. When you start your LinkedIn profile, the first thing is a picture. Please do not put your dog or your girlfriend or your mom, or whoever. This is about you. So just a plain old headshot of you. And then behind your the header of the LinkedIn, if I go to someone's LinkedIn profile and that header is that blue background with the starburst in it, which is the base that gets delivered with LinkedIn, yeah, that's not positive. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that profile. Then your headline is not meant to be your job title. Your headline is meant to be your billboard advertisement. So you'll see when you go to my LinkedIn profile, it says game-changing talent acquisition leader. That makes you want to read more, right? Mm-hmm. So you need a catchy headline. And then you have the opportunity to fill out a paragraph where you actually can sell whoever's reading your profile why they might want to read further, and why you might be the right person for the job that they're looking for, right? And then don't just fill out the titles on your job. Fill out some accomplishments that you've had, some things that you've done. And I always keep different things on my resume that are on my LinkedIn profile, so that people don't then get my resume and think there's nothing different here. So what? I try to add different accomplishments. I try to make sure that there are metrics and data included. LinkedIn provides an online class that's called Rock Your Profile. Strongly suggest people look that up, find that, and rock your profile.
Well, I'm feeling a little uncomfortable right now because I think I may need to go rock my profile.
That's okay, until someone tells you how would
Always
you know?
learning.
Right? Right.
I don't have.
I don't want people to walk away from this saying they didn't learn anything, so good.
Exactly. Well, gosh, Melissa, I wish we could continue this all afternoon, but you have senior level talent acquisition work to do. So
Maybe a little bit. Maybe a little bit.
so
Yeah.
I know we'll hit pause for now. But knowing our alumni, I'm sure we will all continue to stay in touch in the future. But thank you so much for spending this time with our students, our faculty, and our alumni today. We really, really appreciate your wisdom that you shared, and hope we can do this again sometime.
Thank you so much, Jillian. I've really appreciated the week, and I hope everybody walks away with at least one nugget.
I feel very confident that is the situation that we're all in right now. So many
Excellent.
nuggets. So thank
Excellent.
you. And to alumni who joined, thank you for celebrating homecoming from home this year. We hope you enjoyed the chance to connect with Austin College virtually, and can't wait to welcome you back to campus when we're able.
Awesome.
So with that,
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
We'll take care.
Bye.
Talk soon.